Thank you all for coming out to DakshinaChitra this Sunday morning. We've had a very exciting and enriching and personally very gratifying 3 months since the start of Mr. R.M. Palaniappan's retrospective on December 15th. We've seen faces that we've not seen for a long time at DakshinaChitra. We've seen faces repeatedly as they come and see the exhibition which is at Varija and Kadambari. We've had a series of events both in the city as well as this is one of the last events, so we thought we should have it at DakshinaChitra. So the topic is Art in the Age of AI, and it's in the spirit of Walter Benjamin's 100-year-old essay, Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. I'll quickly introduce the panelists today. We have Sadanand Menon. Sadanand is a cultural critic working on art, photography, performance and visual media. He's known for bringing a political and historical lens to his writing. Sadanand has also curated several exhibitions, including 3 retrospectives on Indian artists at the National Gallery of Modern Art, New Delhi, Bombay and Bengaluru. They are in the realm of the visual, 1998, on the late designer Dasrat Patel, Inner Resonance, a return to Sama, 2013 on S.G. Vasudev, and Sculpting in Time, 2018 on Balan Nambiyar. He's also done the main essay for the catalogue that accompanies Mr. R.M. Palaniappan's retrospective, Mapping the Invisible. Sadanand has also collaborated extensively with the performer, choreographer, and is the managing trustee of Spaces, which has been a sort of a haunt of anybody associated with art and culture over the years. We also have Sashi Kumar. Sashi is a journalist and a media practitioner. He has worked with the Press Trust of India. He also is the founder of AsiaNet and now is the chairperson at the Asian College of Journalism. We have Vaishna Roy as the moderator for this morning's session. Vaishna has more than 30 years in journalism. She began her journey with the Business Standard in Calcutta and over the years worked with the Hindu group, the Outlook and the India Today group before returning to the Hindu 12 years ago as the editor of the newspaper Sunday magazine. In May 2022, she took over as the editor of Frontline. And I think we can all sort of say that it is the, in terms of mainstream media or print media, it is the only outlet which seriously covers art and culture in an extensive manner. So they continue to hold that flag high. And any sort of long-form, serious discussions on art and culture still continue at the front line. So a very special thank you to you, Vaishna, for that. It's truly a space that is shrinking, and thank you for keeping that alive. And our final person on the panel is the artist, the man of the hour himself, R.M. Palaniappan. Mr. Palaniappan is among India's foremost artists and printmakers. He was the regional secretary of the Lalit Kala Academy, and he's an alumnus of the Government College of Arts. He's, of course, won several awards. He's played a role of informal role as a mentor teacher to several young artists over here. And in fact, I think during a particular period, several of the artists had their catalogues designed by R.M. Palaniappan, some of which is on show. So I urge all of you to also revisit or visit the exhibition that we have. With that, I hand it over to Vaishna, and may I request Sashi, Sadanand and Mr. Palaniappan to...
Good morning, and lovely to see all of you here. Thank you to DakshinaChitra and to Anita for inviting me to moderate this panel. Very distinguished guests on with whom I'm going to be in conversation. Looking forward to it. I think it's going to be very interesting. Before we start off, I want to show you a couple of things, just to sort of set the context, so to speak. I have with here 2 printouts that I took out, that I downloaded from the internet. One of them is a collage by Dasrat Patel, a Dasrat Patel collage, and one of them is a Palaniappan artwork, right? I can show this to you more closely later. I'll possibly circulate it, yeah, if I Now, there are two unique things. There's something unique about both these pieces that I'm sort of sharing with all of you. And the unique thing about them is that they were created by AI. They've got nothing to do with Dashrath. They've got nothing to do with Palaniappan. I used AI to create those two artworks, and I had a conversation with AI. I went into an AI tool, and I fed it cues about Dashrath and about Palanivel, not obviously about them as people, but about their work, right? So I said things like geometrical features. So I said things like cartographical elements. I said colors. I said the sizes possibly of the elements in that I would like to see. And it took literally about 4 or 5 iterations for each of those drawings. Because I was just doing this for the talk here, right? So I wasn't putting in too much time and effort. I literally spent 2 minutes, I think, per drawing. And about 3 or 4 iterations before I felt it looked like a Dashrath or it looked like a Palanivel. That's all it took. So that is the context in which we are having this conversation today. And the other sort of context setting thing that I want to talk to you about is the whole Studio Ghibli thing. Are you people following it online? Yeah, right. So for those of you who are not, Miyazaki is this very, very famous Japanese animation filmmaker. And he's made some iconic films. Please look him up and watch the films if you can. Sometime in the 1980s, 1984, he set up Studio Ghibli in Tokyo, which continues to work and produce very, very important works. Now, a few weeks ago, ChatGPT came out with a new update. And that update allowed you to produce works that look like Studio Ghibli works, okay? So then what happened was, there was a rash on the internet of people producing their own profile pictures in the Studio Ghibli format. They took pictures of their cat, mother, family, dog, a crowded railway station. Everything was reproduced in the Studio Ghibli format, and the internet is just flooded with it, which obviously raises the sort of immediate questions that one asks about, you know, how do you draw the line, for instance, between homage and kitsch? Are we reducing someone as important as Miyazaki to mere kitsch? Those questions come up, but some even more vital questions come up, because what happened was, one of the images they took was of the demolition of Babri Masjid. And you all know that famous image, right, of the dome and that guy sitting on top breaking it. And that was recast as a Studio Ghibli image, which sort of made it sort of cartoonized that moment, you know. It made it into this very lightweight sort of a thing. And so we need to engage with that aspect of it. What does it mean when we take a moment like that, a blood-chilling moment of destruction, and we sort of cutify it, you know? And how does that then impact memory? How does that impact the ways in which we engage with that moment, and so on and so forth? So I'm hoping that we can talk about a few of these things this morning. Sashi, I thought I'd start off with you. And Sashi, I'm thinking of this whole idea of the monkey and the typewriter experiment. And I think all of you know that infinite number of monkeys, infinite number of typewriters, infinite amount of time. And it can produce the complete works of Shakespeare. That's the theory, right? Sashi, I think AI has brought us to the very, to the very threshold of this, seeing this theory being enacted. What do you now think, what does this mean for ideas like the power of the artistic imagination, the individual genius, the individual imagination? What does that mean in this moment, the power of the individual?
Well, to begin with, I wish you hadn't started with me. I was hoping to develop what someone else would speak about. But nevertheless, I think AI is certainly the elephant in the room in terms of mimesis, simulacrum, terminologies that we've used in art or the appreciation or criticism of art, which we take for granted, now probably need to be revalorized, relooked at because of AI and what, as you said, it can instantaneously reproduce, at least in terms of mimesis, in terms of imitation. And yet, I don't think AI summons up something from thin air. AI is at best permutation, combination of the available, of the extant, and to that extent it's not an entire departure from literature, for instance. I mean, Thomas Mann once famously said, all new literature is paraphrasing previous literature. So there isn't anything that you pull out from thin air in that sense, number one. So I think AI is certainly a challenge, just as counterfeit art is a challenge. But this is far more instantaneous. This may be far more, the very similitude may be far more challenging, far more daunting. I don't think AI is a question of prompt. So you see, AI can't create a new Dashrath Patel, right? The AI can replicate what Dashrath Patel does, for instance, in the collage that you pointed out. That's what I think is the limitation of AI. Is it possible that AI will overtake human thinking, human creativity, show new pathways? There are those who think so. I think one of the founders of AI was, in fact, quit, I think, AI because he believed that, it will begin to think us. As, earlier we used to say about, we think, or you say, I think, therefore I am, Cartesian. But even without going into that philosophy, we think. Whereas here you have a situation where it thinks us, that if AI can get to that stage, then they are overtaking us. Like the poet Rimbaud, they say, he used to write poetry in a manner that the object subjectifies, not the subject objectifies. So will AI get to that stage? It's theoretically possible, but at the moment I'm not sure. And yet I think, now, so you can question this, there are the interstices, there are the ineffable aspects of art, like Palaniappan's, for instance, which I found it very, very, impactful. It's lines after all, but it creates a particular movement in your mind, a particular reaction, a particular process of engaging with it in your mind, which I'm not sure will be the case in a in a digitally produced or a digitally inspired AI or machine learned product. So that's my limited point. I have some other thoughts on this, but in response to that, AI, I think, is certainly the elephant in the room, but it could also be a false alarm in many ways. We shouldn't, it's the buzz of the day. We talk about, AI depends on the prompts you give it, and yes, I've had ridiculous results from AI as well, so it gives you entirely misleading. The danger is that if you go that way, the false can become the real. AI can be so preponderant, can be so overwhelming, can be so insistent, and so much resorted to that the real can be mistaken for the false, or the false can be mistaken for the real, sorry. The AI product can be mistaken for the real because of its preponderant nature, not because of its authenticity, not because of the genuineness of what it produces. That's the point.
Yeah, Sashi, actually it's interesting that you say that, because it brings me actually nicely to what I was going to talk about next. When Anita told me that this is what she wants the panel to be about, one line that kept popping into my mind, unbidden, was Keats's line, beauty is truth, truth beauty, that's all ye know on earth and all ye need to know. And I was thinking to myself that what does this line even mean? The line still resonates with me in certain ways. Like when you see a perfect, yellow moon in the sky, or you see a kingfisher diving in a flash of blue, there are these moments of perfect beauty which do really dim, sort of the ugliness around you. And that line then does resonate with you. But in a post-truth, post-beauty, post-modern world that we are in today, what does that line even mean? So in that connection, I thought I'll have a question first for Palaniappan and then for Sadanand. Palaniappan, I wanted to ask you, as an artist, as a modernist, as an abstractionist, what do these words, beauty and truth, mean to you? Do you engage beauty and truth? How do you engage with them when you are working?
For me, the beauty, when you are seeing anything continuously, something reflects your mind and you will be having some pleasure, kind of a pleasure. But aesthetic, when you are coming to the point of aesthetic, it is more than a pleasure, and you will move, from that particular, emotionally you will move from that place to another place actually. You will also see like another world. That is why the new aesthetic is always says actually to me. It is not that beauty, you can recognize anything, it is a very beautiful, by seeing it, when you are continuously seeing that, appreciation automatically will come. But bringing a new aesthetic in your work, or by seeing, to finding out, it requires a lot of, your, more than an input, your presence is very much required, your presence in the sense, what you called as, it is very, very important, the new aesthetic.
Your presence.
Yeah, my presence, my history, my genetical presence actually. That's what I'm telling you, yeah.
Which then brings us back to the idea of the individual.
Yeah. That is why, AI cannot replace my presence actually. It is impossible actually, because my genetic impression, things are very, my ancient man, I'm carrying the ancient man inside actually. It will not replace. But the one thing I found the problem very recently, ChatGPT, I was using it, for English correction. That too, for only in the time of retrospective, I started using it, I'm telling you that Mr. Sashi was telling about that, learning process, machine learning process. The machine learn, once so many softwares are there in the AI. In the AI, Open AI, I use Open AI. If I started Open AI, if I'm putting my biodata, I started questioning, I thought, because it is also, it's like an agent. It is with me, all the time with me. So only in that software, I'm putting all my input, So now it is thinking like me, It talks like me, the same language, tone of my language exactly. Every time I used to say, don't change my tone. So it replicated exactly the way what I am talking to the people. So that means when you are using a software, see everything in the web, now World Web actually, and all these information has already gone from everybody's, from multiple, millions and millions of images, millions of image, concept. In fact, my people, most of my relatives are there in that, the scientific field only, and also in the software and software creations and all. We do discuss certain things, And he was telling that some of the companies, it's all the company politics, corporate politics, big politics is going on. One of the companies is called GIT, Kit Hub or something like that. People used to put every their software, their codings inside to safeguard it. It's like a locker. They put it inside. But finally, Microsoft has purchased. Nobody knows it. The Microsoft has purchased. Then Microsoft has later collaborated with AI, OpenAI. Now, and Google is a kind of search engine. They are using, without knowing them, the search engine, the paid search engine, they are using every, they completely practiced how the AI have to work actually to help the people. So now, nothing. What my younger brother used to tell me, he is there in the Intel. He used to tell Palaniappan, I don't give anything in the website actually. Only I have this, WhatsApp, only for the family messages I'm sending it, and nothing, I'm not to Facebook. Whatever we are putting it, it is there somewhere, in the satellite somewhere. And maybe the satellite is not working, maybe later they will retry, and so all our information, all our thought, it will be go out actually. So that much, things are completely, it is there actually, the world web actually. So that is why aesthetic also, the same manner, what I feel, if I'm working everything in a computer, what I'm working with the thought of aesthetic, not a beauty. Aesthetic, my aesthetic, when I started working, I am finding my own aesthetic in my computer actually, the way of the display, the font selection, or maybe the form selection or color selection, everything will be, so it work according to me actually. So it means it is going to be part of it actually. I think we have to, in future, it's going to be a partner. It's going to be a partner.
It's an interesting
There's no
thought.
other source.
Yeah. That's an interesting thought, Palani. We'll just hold that thought. I'm going to come to Sadanand. Sadanand, the very meaning of truth itself is very fraught today. Truth, the idea of truth is being challenged and fraught. If postmodernism saw the collapse of meaning and beauty and so on, in metamodernism, I think we are trying to come back to a stage where perhaps we might be reconstructing meaning. Do you believe that as we go forward in the age of AI, we are going to be re-engaging with concepts like truth and beauty, or should we be just relegating that sentence into the dustbin of history?
Yeah, it's obviously the time and age has come for revisiting some of these concepts which we always considered eternal and timeless. Truth, beauty, because they, on the one hand, they deal with certain certainties. Truth can only be one, beauty can only be one kind of thing, etc., etc. On the other hand, they are highly ambiguous, they are highly situational, they are highly contextual. And it's always been like that, it's always been calibrated and so on. So like in our context, I want to refer to 3 or 4 incidents that happened probably over the last 1 week. On March 23rd, that's just a week ago, there was this annual memorial lecture in Delhi dedicated to one of India's leading journalists called B.G. Verghese, legendary editor and so on, who took on Indira Gandhi in the emergency during as editor of Hindustan Times. So the B.G. Verghese Memorial this year, 1 week ago, was delivered by this very famous retired judge of the Orissa High Court, S. Muralidhar, very well known for his outspoken judgments, and because of which he was not allowed to go up the ladder into the Supreme Court, etc. His opening sentences were quite remarkable. And they were like disclaimers. His first sentence was, as he comes up to the mic, he says, I want to make 2 disclaimers. Number 1, I am not a robot. Number 2, what I'm going to say has not been written by ChatGPT. So it's quite remarkable. Maybe all of us, as the time goes on, we'll have to keep asserting, like when you go to a cyber cafe and want to enter your email, you have to confirm that you're not a robot. You have to tick the box, etc., etc. You have to do some little mapping and see to it that human brains are being used. So that was a week ago. On March 25, just 5 days ago, our good friend, the political cartoonist for Indian Express, E.P. Unni, drew a front page pocket cartoon in which there's a little boy in the cartoon who's pointing to a QR code. And it says, scan the QR code to visit the M.F. Hussain exhibition. Now that can be, of course, a brilliant new strategy where you can have Kunal Kamra can do this. He can do a stand-up comedy through a QR code. You can't vandalize any venue. You can't beat up the guy. It's a QR code. It's not a actual material living thing. And then Unni has another adjacent QR code which says, scan this to read the 96-page judgment by Sanjay Kishan Kaul on, why whatever Hussain did was completely legal and there's no way he should be prosecuted for anything, all those so-called complaints that were made. So these things are coming up with regular force. Vaishna mentioned the Ghiblis founder actually saying that I find AI disgusting. I find it morally corrupt.
He said AI produced animation is an insult to life itself.
Insult to, yeah. And by the same token, Sam Altman, the founder of AI now, he also says that the new graphic version added to ChatGPT, I think it's called ChatGPT 4.0 or something like that. He says that it's being used so much now that it's melting down their servers. They are not able to handle the multi-millions of people who are using that particular device to create their own visuals, to create their own altered realities and so on and so forth. They actually altered realities. It's no longer the truth reality that we are discussing and so on and so forth. So it leads us to certain predicaments that are going to come up. Some of them are actual predicaments which we'll need to negotiate. Some of them are difficult contexts. And some of them may be liberational. Who knows? You come to a completely new aesthetic. All of us need that. I think everything is now tired. Even the text that we are referring to, Walter Benjamin's work of art in the age of mechanical reproduction, which was written in 1935 under the Nazi regime, and what the Nazi regime was producing, which was called the cult of beauty. It was the cult of aesthetics. Nazism represented the ideal man. The hero for both Benito Mussolini and for Hitler was this Italian philosopher called Marinetti, whose dream was the dream that many current film scripts and online platform productions and television serials reproduce, which is the longed for, desired for metallization of man. That the human flesh or the human being in flesh and blood is inadequate, is vulnerable, is time-bound. Whereas if we all become metal, like Rajinikanth became in Yandiran, you're eternal, you last through time, you last forever. And that's an aesthetic. But that was also an aesthetic of war. It was an aesthetic of a particular kind of violence which was considered not only relevant for that society at that time or that politics at that time, but you see it now appearing in our time also. It's continuing into our time. So who knows, maybe this technical intervention, this mechanical intervention, a century later, after photography, 150 years after photography, might be a liberational thing where you arrive at a new reality which enables you to look within yourself in a different way, which enhances and which provides wings to new kind of politics and so on. So basically it's something that we need to...
So you're saying we will be re-engaging with these ideas?
We're not only re-engaging with these ideas, but the need to intervene with technology, the need to interface with technology becomes extremely relevant today, because...
What Palani just said, where it will be a companion to...
No, that's one thing, but also to understand it probably conceptually. See, you use the alphabets AI and understand its usual expansion as artificial intelligence. But I'm also seeing it as a possibility of expanding it as aggravated imperialism. Because whatever this technology is, without common human intervention, without collective intervention of the citizenry, it's basically a centralizing force. Everything gets into a server. Server decides what happens. It's one brain that controls or disseminates and so on. So this is an issue that needs to be addressed.
I want to talk to you about this issue, but I'm going to come back to it in a bit because it ties into something I wanted to speak to you about. I'm going to ask Sashi one small thing. Sashi, we've seen a process, actually, all three of you can feel free to respond. We see art has been a process of getting closer and closer to the external world, right? So first we had, say, a photograph that we hung up on our walls, a piece of art from, say, cave art, right? We're moving slowly, temple art, we're moving into hanging a photograph on our walls, or making a film and then watching it, a home movie which we watch inside our home. So we're getting closer and closer to the idea of the external world. But now we are at a time when people want to be the art themselves, right? So they are starring in their own TikTok movies, they're starring in their wedding films, right? And you have this whole business of everyone, as you know, in all sorts of genres of art, anybody with a phone is a photographer, movie maker, a journalist, an artist, and so on and so forth, right? So for example, you're making memes and you're a cartoonist. So, this process of moving closer, what Walter Benjamin called this the stripping of the veil, right? I wanted to ask actually, what is left when, if we seem to be seeing the stripping of the veil entirely, what is left when the veil goes away? Is this a moment of time that we should be concerned about, or is this a moment of celebration that this is a people's movement? How do we see this? How do we read this moment?
I think there's a lot there. Frederick Jameson, who passed away fairly recently, I find this schema very useful. He says there are three historical, what he calls moments in inverted commas, or junctures in human civilization. He's talking about date capitalism and its artistic aesthetic. He says there's the 1830s, which was of merchant capitalism, whose cultural expression was realism, whose instrumentality or whose artistic product, if you like, was photography. It was expressed through photograph. Then you move to the 1890s, where you move to monopoly capitalism, whose cultural expression is modernism, and whose expression or instrumentality is cinema, because it's a synthesis of all that expressed. Then 1940s, which is transnational capitalism, whose cultural expression is postmodernism, whose instrumentality is electronics. So postmodernism is as old as that. And in terms of an overarching artistic, shall we say, expression or aesthetic or temper, I don't think there has been one since postmodernism. You have streams. I mean, you have surrealism, you have Dadaism, you have situationist international. I mean, you have a number of those things. But there isn't. You have had postmodernism, then people resorted to saying postmodernism, and then saying postmodernism, and so on.
But now there's something called
Metamodernism. But nothing really overarching in that sense. And you haven't moved beyond electronics even in Jameson's schema, Digital comes after the electronics. It's further than it's pushed the frontiers further. And we are therefore in the digital age where we are talking about AI and I think it's true that there's been a paradigm shift. The paradigm shift being, as I think was already anticipated by Roland Barthes, by even Susan Sontag and others, that from an idea of valuing heights and depths, where you think height and depth is important, you move to a realm of flat surfaces, of breadth. And I see this, when I see Palaniappan's line, I see the celebration of surface and breadth, and of line, which is not linear. To have lines which are not linear in the sense that they are not continuous, They could be discontiguous. They need not be continuous or contiguous. They could be discontiguous and discontinuous and yet be non-linear. Lines which are non-linear. So you have inversion, in other words. This is what I call digital disruption in some ways. You're disrupting digitally old ideas of linearity, of continuity, of cause and effect, of thinking rationally, I think therefore I am, and all of that. So in a realm of breadth, there's also been a devolution, as you said, of where people are expressing art, kitsch, not kish. See, the problem with the Walter Benjamin proposition, for instance, art in the age of mechanical reproduction is, did he say that in a salutary sense? Did he say that as a condemnation? I've tried to figure this out. For someone who said that art being showcased, art as having the aura, to remove the auratic of the art and make it mechanical. So is art in the age of mechanical reproduction a positive step, or is it that you're losing the auratic aspect of art? Photocopiers do that, photography does that also, We are, I think, in a situation where there's a similar challenge of valorization, a dilemma of valorization. As you said, everyone has a smartphone, everybody's creating images, there's accumulation of spectacle, as Guy Debord said at some time, the society of the spectacle is upon us because everybody's taking photographs. And there's such a huge, what Karl Marx spoke about accumulation of wealth, we're now speaking about accumulation of spectacle in the Debordian sense, And so everybody is a creator, everybody is an author. And therefore, I'm now playing devil's advocacy. Should we have an art gallery where people will come and see high art and go away? Or can I see it on my smartphone? Or can Palaniappan carry it in a mobile van and show it to people? Or is there a way of, in modern ways of looking at those art pieces differently? So there is a big shift in the artistic production, or the artistic expression. There's a big shift in the artistic consumption. The artistic consumption is at an all-time high, as the new Marxists have expressed. You have the consumers determining the taste of the producers anticipating the taste of the consumer and reproducing, his product in order to create that space. The algorithms are tuned to do that. By the way, the catalog that was produced for Palaniappan, I think there's a splendid article by Sadanand where he makes mention of this, how you appreciate art is no longer autonomous, is perhaps no longer autonomous, is perhaps no longer sui generis. It's reactive. You're already in the loop, being conditioned on how your appreciation will be because of the algorithmic activity that is hectic out there. It's below the surface. And below the surface, as Sadanand calls it, above the earth and below the sky, is a realm that Palaniappan explores, where, I found that fascinating, where there are all kinds of spy satellites, surveillance mechanisms, which are harvesting information, harvesting our personalities, and producing products to which your own personality is being fed back to you. It's like a dog eating its tail or some such thing. So these are things that are happening, not palpably, but below the surface, between, in the interstices, as I would say. So that's the fascinating, for me, that's the fascinating aspect, that we moved from the realm of depth and height into a realm of surface. And therefore we're saying we're in a realm of breadth doesn't mean it's inferior to depth or height or depth.
Yeah.
Now when you talk about the internet space, for instance, which is what the space about, all the digital space is all about, we don't talk about diving into depths of knowledge or ascending to heights of knowledge. The terminology is one of breadth, We talk about surfing the net. We don't talk about diving into the net, spanning, scanning. Look at this terminology. It's all terminology of breadth. The cognitive response is that of breadth. And I'm arguing there's nothing wrong with that. And for me, the peculiar appeal of Palaniappan's linear, the way he plays with the linear, the bouncing ball as a linear, you're seeing the dots, you have to fill in the dots. The line also may not be there. That's a fascinating extent. No AI can produce that The difference, they say, A.R. Rahman used to say, the difference between music composed analogically and digitally is, digitally I compose the music, if you look at the computer, what you're hearing is not even there on the computer, because it's this persistence of hearing, like persistence of vision. But in the analog, it is there. So digital is creating that kind of, the simulacrum is so real.
So real, yeah.
So that is the environment, that's the ecology in which you are producing, responding to, consuming, engaging with art is my sense.
That's fascinating. But I'm going to come back to you, Sadanand, and something you said, and the idea of mechanical reproduction. If we look at, you have sort of, how should I say this, tried to come to terms with the fact that Dashrath Patel's collages, for example, there are multiple reproductions out there, and they're even being produced mechanically in order to cater to a certain home decor market, right? Where this whole idea of the conditions of production are feeding into it, the very idea of, that there being a market, there being endless reproductions that can be sold, where the artistic idea has been reduced to a certain kind of market idea. So how do you tie in that idea with the age of AI in which we live, with this sort of liminal space that we are in now, where, like he says, or like I said, anybody seems, AI seems able to think like Palaniappan. As Palaniappan himself said, he's giving it the cues so that it thinks in his tone, it understands who he is and what his language is. So how do these, and you mentioned it briefly, how does this whole production, the mechanics of production work into this idea?
Yeah, I think for a long time, maybe even today, we continue to live under this fetish that the artist is someone touched by divine genius at birth. Some lightning struck her or him and made them this tremendously creative person, this precious personality who is all solo and exclusive and unlike any other human being, and so on. Which I think is a lot of balderdash, and it's continued for a long time, this idea of artistic exclusivity. There's this fantastic book by the outstanding British writer and art historian and photographer called David Hockney, which is called Secret Knowledge, which tracks roughly from the 15th century onwards, 1418 or something like that, 15th century onwards, some of the greatest names in the world of visual art who all used mechanical devices, lenses, mirrors, camera obscuras, camera lucidas, and so on and so forth, to create images in the likeness of so-called reality. And to produce verisimilitude, to produce naturalism, to create what today is called hyperrealism, and so on and so forth. And in all these exercises, you realize that the word art is an extension of the word artifice. Artificial is probably a little different, but artifice definitely comes with art. It's not as if I have a canvas in front of me and I pick up a pencil or a brush and some hidden hand guides me all over the place. There is A, of course, the training, B, of course, like he says, the genes and what came before, not just your personal genes, but the genes of a culture that you carry and your visual accumulation, all that. But there is also a facilitating mediator always in between. It could be a measuring scale, or Palani uses a lot of set squares and Ds and so on, geometric material. But also these highly developing instruments with which facilitate, that's how this word lens-based practice has arisen, because a lot of lens and mirror-based activities going on in the world of art. Sorry. And whether it is Vermeer, whether it's Velasquez, whether it is Ingres, whether it's Da Vinci, whether it's Michelangelo, right up to the beginnings of Impressionism in the mid-19th century, let's say Cézanne. Many of these activities were using what are called monocular devices, one-eyed practices, the arrival of perspectivalism, one-point perspectivalism, completely different from Chinese practices of scroll painting or Indian miniature practices, which have multiple fields and multiple points in a small little space. These became one-point perspectives, and one-point perspectives sort of made the object fixed in space. Very different from what then Cézanne inaugurated as a counter to that kind of modernism, which was the binocular practice, where you can see that the artist is viewing with both eyes and not just looking through one mechanical device like a camera lucida or something. Camera lucida is still being used. It's a very interesting, neat device today, very sleekly made, and helps you to create portraits and create lifelike images and so on. But the idea, therefore, of production of art has always gone through this kind of multiple iterations. And when you take that trajectory from, say, Cézanne to Palaniappan, which is nice to think about, 170 odd years, you have a tremendous variation of practice that is going on. Constant reviewing of what is an object of art, what is the method of art, what are the materials of art, what are the instruments of art, what is the manner of consumption, what is the manner of circulation, what is the manner of ingestion, what is the manner then of also storage and conservation. And this has been rapid. So 150 years of very, very rapid changes, which if you, let's say, compress into bullet points, from Impressionism, you come to Dadaism, you come to the great intervention of Marcel Duchamp, who says all this kind of art is rubbish. Even industrial products can be made into art. So you bring a urinal, you bring a bicycle wheel and convert that, put that in a gallery and make it a holy object of art, etc., etc. Surrealism, which challenges the entire question of fixed reality, or in fact even the honor that is paid to rationality, etc., etc., because of World War II and what happened in World War II. And the challenges from people like Rauschenberg and Kooning and Andy Warhol, etc., in the 1960s, questioning many of these ideas of realism and moving to abstraction. In between that, a whole lot of political art that arose from the Russian Revolution onwards, and then the Cuban and the other protest movements that happened around the world. All these are constantly getting overlaid, overtaken, toppled, and reconstituted. But the big thing that, you take the early 1990s and the arrival of Damien Hirst with a work of art which is a 27-foot long shark inside a glass case in formaldehyde, with a brilliant title, The Impossibility of Death in the Mind of Someone Already Living, and which generates a huge amount of debate on what is art. Does the shark have a autonomy of its own or not, etc., etc., etc. And then the rapid move through the digital age. If you take from the 2000s onwards, roughly the last 20 years, it's such extraordinary production of digital-based art, at which point suddenly art that was seeming to be material suddenly dematerializes. It becomes something. It becomes dots and pixels and something up there in the air. We can't catch it. It's probably starting. The initiator is probably the installation art, which in fact is challenging the commodity production of art and challenging the buying and selling of art and those kind of things. But from digital to AI today is a trajectory that is now uncontrollable, which is now galloping too far. So, to return to the question you asked, is there an authentic Dashrath Patel? There is, there was, but can Dashrath Patels be reproduced? Not just Dashrath Patel, he can be enhanced to the point of X by all these mechanical devices, whether you accept it or not. So I think the art market is also going to change, therefore, and no longer be stuck on the idea of authenticity, no longer be stuck on the idea of what Benjamin pointed out, the aura. So he called it the aura, not the veil. He said the aura has disappeared. Why has the aura disappeared? Because art has got democratized. It's no longer a holy grail, either in a church or in a temple or in a gallery surrounded by glass cases and 10 guards, like in Mona Lisa and all, protecting and all that. It's now democratized. It's become mass. The moment it becomes mass, it also raises a flag, a danger flag, just like cinema did during the Nazi era. Propaganda cinema plus Leni Riefenstahl and people like that, producing this cult of beauty, producing this veneration and, how shall we say, celebration of idealized aesthetics, which he calls anti-art. Because he says now the point is not, because it ends up aestheticizing politics. And that was Benjamin's main point, that let's not end up aestheticizing politics. The task of the artist and the intellectual and the critic has to be to politicize art, to reverse it. Now that is a process that has somewhere jammed in the last 30 odd years. The politicization of art has been attempted, there are political artists, etc., but the market has taken over, they control the production and dissemination and consumption, and the individual artist probably is floundering in that space to find a toehold and so on and so forth. So, to me, the fear I have, while I see the liberatory possibilities of all this, the fear I have is we might come to a stage, and it's a speculation, we might come to a stage where AI will generate a set of, within quotation, artistic material purely for the consumption of AI, not for you and me, unless we have also become AI. And that can become an entire trajectory of its own of huge numerical proportion, which can't be matched by Palani. Palani has worked for 45 years to now create maybe 300 works of art. But with AI, he could have produced 30,000 or more, I don't know, etc., etc. So that's a new twist in the tale.
Two things that you said, the dematerialization of art and how the art market itself has to reinvent itself, and where now you don't have to even possess the art physically. It's an NFT token, and you're simply trading it out there on blockchains and so on. So it's in a different world that we can't quite understand. How much time do we have, Anita? Should I wrap up with the last question and Q&A? So I have a question for you, Palani. Palani, as an artist, you're not inspired by nature or the human body or any of that. What you seem to be energized by and inspired by is science and technology and possibly even AI and the limits to which this can go. So I was thinking to myself that, Deborah is quoted in that review by Geeta. I think Deborah writes in the catalogue perhaps that yours is an intellectual and emotional response to the world around you. But would it be fair for me to say that possibly your response to the world is an intellectual and perhaps a metaphysical response, but not necessarily an emotional response? It seems to me as if you're engaging not with your intellect, not so much as with your senses. Would it be fair to say that?
Yeah. I'm being an artist living in this age, computer age. and now it's going to be AI. Still it is not, still we are not using that AI as part of our life actually. But knowingly or unknowingly, and one day or other, whoever is also going to reject now, they will be part of it. I mean, AI is not going to be away from, according to my knowledge, it's not away from from your life. It is going to be part of your life. And except maybe cooking or anything, cooking maybe it required a robo has to do it. Otherwise, most of the things what we are working with the ticketing, that everything will be the kind of AI is going to work on it actually. That means we are part and parcel of that AI thing. So this time, you cannot forget that as a tools to learn. Nothing wrong in it actually. And if it is possible, you can use maximum for your requirement actually. Nothing wrong in it actually. And definitely it is not going to replace, because our emotion, cultural values, everything it is there in our art or whatever that we are working as a human. So for me, what happened to a question, for me first response is, my emotion. I cannot away from my emotion. So in all my work, when you are going through my retrospective, everything it came out of my emotion. And whatever the knowledge system, what I have, what I gathered in my whole lifetime, I used it here and there actually. I will go from, his talk was, he told about certain things. See, I will reason that plus and minus. My reason was, Sadanand, when I was talking to Sadanand for my retrospective and all, I asked him to curate. He said, Palaniappan, you curate it was exhibition, I will write it down. So he started writing. Then he suggested certain points, said, Palaniappan, he saw my recent work, recent drawing, and also earlier drawings, lot of drawings. Thousands and thousands of drawings, he saw it, sketch note. He asked me to exhibit. It's a very, very important. That's what I'm pronouncing. He asked me to exhibit that sketch note. I said, Mr. Sadanand, I don't want to exhibit this sketch notebook because it's unfinished. That means still lots of things I have to do it. It's like my diary. Then he himself suggesting few things you can enlarge it actually. Okay, few things it came to my mind also. I wanted to be enlarged in a larger format. So when I wanted to enlarge it, it is like a reproduction. It doesn't have a value. It doesn't have a value system. Then I myself saw my sketch notebook in a different. When I started reading my own sketch notebook, I started going to a different world actually. I am seeing different kind of world in it actually. So what is the world? The knowledge what I gathered from that particular point of my drawing to this particular point of time. What is the time? That is a AI period. So how AI work? Okay, now I am telling you one, in between this I am telling you one thing. In 1996, I applied for the Charles Wallace grant to go to do something computer. That time only the computer technology is coming to the art field actually. In a higher level actually. That time only the Photoshop 3rd version, 4th version and all coming. So I have made one proposal to Royal Academy for getting a grant from the Charles Wallace. The thing is, it's a very beautiful one. What the AI is doing it now, that was the project that time. What I did, see that time I was saying that morphing, animation morphing and all, how they are morphing, how they are mapping it. And all those kind of things, when it was very interesting to me, I thought, according to my physicality and the psychology, I was talking about it, many things about my work, how it works, between the psychology and the physicality. There is a picture in between. I wanted to bring it out through that morphing. That one image to another image. How when the morphing is happening, some different kind of image is an invisible image actually. I wanted to bring it out. I made a big project. I sent it to Royal College. What is the response from the Royal College? One of the strongest application ever received for the last 2 decades actually. So I didn't go. Finally, they themselves continuously asking me, why don't you go to Charles Wallace? They sent me to Oxford. I went there. I practiced this little bit of the, the computer with the technology of layering and everything. I was not happy. Then I moved back to the drawings actually. That was one. The second portion of it, the extension of that, what he was telling about it. When I was thinking about my recent old drawings in the recent time, I found the same morphing. how the movement is happening in the open space, three-dimensional, morphing this place to that place, to this place to that place. So that is all in the graph actually, and also in the plus, and according to the speed, according to the movement of the shape. So that is what my recent work, it was there in the first few days, it was there, I exhibited here, and Sharanappa has taken that complete set of works actually. There I made that all kind of, plus and minus one, it's a vanishing with the graph sheet actually. The background was there. The thing is, I am a thinking animal actually. I cannot repeat it continuously. If the emotion is continuing, I will do it. And the emotion is stopped, I was rethinking about my own work, I will be a different person. That is what it is happening in my work. That is why all my work, 5 work, 10 works, not 10 works, maybe hundreds of work I did actually every period. But always changes. I cannot, continuously doing it for 40 years, the same kind of work. It's impossible for me to do it actually.
Fascinating. Thanks, Palaniappan, for that. And we'll open it up for questions. I think lots to be said. I'm sure our panelists have lots to respond. So please, go ahead. Palani, I'm going to start with one question myself, and then maybe something will come from the floor. You, Mahesh? Please go on. Okay, no, nothing. This is just a frivolous question, Palaniappan. Please bear with me. It's a very frivolous question. When I walk on the street in a new city, what I'm looking at are trees and people and shop fronts and crowds and traffic, right? And that's the image that is in my mind. And then I see your series, Berlin series, and I'm thinking to myself, what does Palaniappan see when he walks down a street in Berlin? Can you tell me a little bit of how does your vision work?
See, Berlin was Berlin was very important to me. I didn't know, because I was, all my works, it came from the Second World War impact, So that Max Muller Bhavan has sent me to the Germany to visit some places, around 12 different places, 20 different museums, direct as appointment. I was going around all the places. And finally I came to the place called, when I was passing through the last appointment, one appointment to another appointment, I was passing through the gate, the German gate, that where it was broken, Its left side, it was the Reichstag building. That was a building. It gave me a birth of all my works actually, military bands and everything. From that, I saw many war films. In the war film also, I can categorize 4 or 5 different kind of things. One is a flight movement. Another one is people killing each other. That is why during the same period, I was telling about the negative and positive areas of sensitiveness. I was talking about my first work was the dancing steps on my birthday. Same time I was doing black steps to hell. The sensitivity it is because I was seeing that period, lot of Second World War film. People are killing each other for what? So that is why, I was, when I was there in the Berlin, the people moving around taking photograph, because after a few days, that same building, it is becoming the Parliament to United Germany actually. So just after the 10 days, after not even the 10 days, the same building was packed with the Christo has packed and everything. So that particular building, when I was taking photograph, for me, it's a different kind of impact. I was also like a warrior taking photograph, along with other people So all these marking what their movement in the floor, I made it as a picture. So I made the Berlin series also in a 3-4 variety. One is a photography, straightforward photography, what I did. Second one is watercolor. And what you said, what you are going around the T Nagar or something like that, what you are seeing, the crane or something like that, the same thing I put it. And third one, it's a conceptual part of it. What is there in my mind, inside, invisible part of it actually.
I love that series.
Yeah. Sadanand, you mentioned AI as aggravated imperialism, right? So, and we talk a lot about what is possible through AI and, how it can enhance, augment, it can even produce, better works, right? So is the real danger that politicization of art not possible through AI, or there is scope for that as well? Because if we really, look at art to sort of challenge the status quo, if AI is a platform to sort of democratize that space, is politicization of art possible, with the, current setup?
I think these are the dangers that one flags, that while certain instruments democratized participation, like the writing pen, like a camera, like a mobile phone, these are supposed to be democratizing instruments. They are not centrally controlled. In AI, that is one danger. It's not going to be multiply located in multiple places. It's going to be centrally controlled. It's a extension of the World Wide Web, which is one net, which, if I were a conspiracy theorist, I would say NATO controls everything, etc., etc. So, I mean, we don't know, but a deep state will be running that whole regime. And therefore, who controls the instrument will control the politics. And censorship becomes very easy. Like nowadays, at least in 4 states of India, internet shutdown is actually going on at the moment. And none of us are able to do anything about it. It's a state-controlled activity. So while there is enormous freedom, there's also going to be the possibility of reigning in an extremely rigid way. Now, this leads to another problematic of experiencing what we may broadly call art. It could be visual art, it could be performing art, it could be literature. It's what I would call the distracted viewership. It's no longer a focused viewership. Like, it's very common now for people to say nobody watches something for more than 7 frames. After that, you want to shift and move to something else, etc. But this distraction has been happening over the last roughly 100 years of technological processes coming into the media, coming into expression and so on. And therefore it becomes a very, how shall we say, dispersed mass. The politics of change, if we take the Marxian construct, the Communist Manifesto as a disseminating point, wants a focused mass, a proletarian who knows that if he breaks his chains, he gets freedom, he or she. But when you come to a distracted, dispersed mass, then that focus is gone. And therefore the sense of politics also gets dispersed. I think in one way, he thinks in one way, she thinks in one way. We may all be friends, but we are dispersed. We are not able to sit around the table and find a solution. Somewhat in the manner of the dispersed opposition in India at the moment. It's just not able to act together. And this is going to get worse, is going to get more aggravated as imperialism's designs get more and more evident and so on and so forth. So I think there is a problematic here which we have not thought through, but definitely we need to think through.
Yeah, thanks, Vaishna. I'm just going to continue from Mahesh's question. Sorry? Yeah, I'm just going I think, Sadanand, more than the centralization of production through AI, I think what you said, censorship actually is the real issue, I thought. I mean, that was very, very important. Secondly, I just want to say that Palaniappan's idea of the AI as companion is very, very appealing, definitely. And thirdly, I think the work of art in the age of, it should be now mechanical production instead of reproduction. So, but to my question or my, this thing is in continuation to Mahesh's question about whether it is possible to, politicization of art is possible through AI. I think there the censors are going to be the basic, leash on that.
The thing is, I think there's a structural difference. As I said, there's a paradigm change. Now, art as a tool of resistance, unless it's in an organizational form, will not make sense. If each of us is an artist expressing our own opposition to what, to whom, Raymond Williams, I think, said this, he said, in fact, he questioned this whole Marxist theory of base and superstructure. He said this base superstructure, if you apply it to art, you will never find revolutionary art, because art must belong to the base, not to the superstructure. And art belongs to the base when materiality of production, materiality of resistance combine. And that is what is happening now. So in one sense, it's a very exciting moment. You have the tool with you, you have the smartphone with you, it's a tool. I mean, in that sense. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but it's as good as that. You can express your view. You can engage. The public sphere is no longer what Habermas said it is, where, people gather without, it is a digital accentuation of that. You can participate in that space incognito. You can, without expressing, who you are, etc. You can play different roles. And it's a freewheeling, perhaps dystopian, perhaps anarchic kind of space. But that is a process of art being taken over by the individual. So the artist, if I'm a person, I'm also an artist potentially. Period. And how do I express myself with my wherewithal? Through photography, perhaps, through what I take with my mobile phone, or through what I speak with a podcast, or with what I draw, or what I write. It could be through the graphic form, it could be... So, the logocentrism and all that is out of the window now. You're talking about multiplicity, multiple modes of expression, and it's not... So, it's that dispersed. So, there's a problem of a combined resistance, of a conflation of a resistance happening from all of these areas. That's a reality, which is why authoritarianism it's not coincidental that when we speak about AI, we're also speaking about much of the world being taken over by authoritarians. I mean, you saw the Elon Musk salute, right? Hitlerian salute. It's a flashback to that John. What's his name? John, 1932, Hitlerian salute. There's a photo montage parody of that. John Richfield, John Hartfield, yes. Where you have this Hitler doing like this, and actually there's a big corporate entity which is not clear, who's putting lots of dollars into his hands. So, except here it's inverted. Elon Musk doesn't need the dollars. He's got the dollars, and he's also the artist. So, because he's also sitting on AI. So, these dangerous conflations that are taking place, that is unprecedented. Digital capitalism is unprecedented. The world has not seen anything like that. That 5 people in the world whose net worth is probably more than 75 countries in the world. I mean, the world has never seen anything like that, on the one hand. On the other hand, this kind of, freewheeling, devolution, dispersal, democratization, whatever you want to call it, so there are individual sovereignties developing. So it's an entire paradigm shift in that sense. Whose art, what art, why art, all of these are, I think, are up for discussion or interrogation. That's my sense of it.
I might add just that one line. When we speak of politicization of art in the digital age, for me, one of the greatest examples of it is the meme. I mean, anybody can make a meme. You don't have to be an artist. You take existing photographs, and because of the words and because of the ways in which you conflate an image and a text, you make such powerful statements, and it gets dispersed globally. So I think there are going to be other sorts of ways in which this politicization is going to happen. It's not going to be, yes, I mean, we've got this whole AI taking over. It's not just imperialism of capital, it's also imperialism of knowledge. Global knowledge is now in the hands of AI, and it chooses how to disperse it. So I think we're in for some exciting times from both sides of the spectrum.
Just one more thing I want to add to this as an extension of the conversation, that we keep saying the possibility of production of new ways of expression, new art, new architecture, new performances, new viewing. We keep thinking about it when we think about AI, but probably this is the first time in human history that all the earlier changes in the ways of production of art, the ways of understanding art, the ways of expressing, etc., did not tamper with, within quotation, reality. But here, for the first time in human history, there is this possibility that the idea of reality can be massively rejigged. And we don't know what shape it will take, but that is one of the, let's say, it's quite possibly could be liberative, who knows? It's a speculative thing. But if it's going to be controlled by the Musk-like characters, then we are in for a surprise. We are in for a, what do you call, some kind of a massive shock. And we still don't know what the level of that will be. But that is where all the question marks begin to appear.
I think we're going to be inhabiting multiple realities. Matangi, you had a question. After that, Bhagwan, I'll come to you. Matangi.
I'll be very brief. Thank you so much for as riveting a discussion as one might expect and a host of questions. My first question is perhaps rhetorical. Do we need new theorists? New theorists. We do Jameson, Benjamin, we're talking about Marxism, we're talking about Raymond Williams, and yet we seem to be struggling to keep up with a host of extremely speeded up phenomena in the last 15 years that we are struggling to conceptualize. So my one wonder is that. And two, in focusing on the first part of Benjamin's essay, the work of art in the sense of we have staged the question with art at one end and AI at the other, in this exceptional formation, where it seems to me that we are in a competition for what can claim either transcendentalism or immortality, as the case may be. There's a staging where they're opposed to each other. And I'm thinking Donna Haraway and the question of the cyborg, which is either we have never been modern, or we are always already cyborgs since the modern in some ways. So the fact that we say AI is taking over assumes that there is an I outside of it, the position that allows us to think about such a takeover. And maybe that's where the struggle may exist in forming this question appropriately, is a thought I wanted to throw out.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. Also, but there's the converse of that happening. There's growingly the urge or the shall we say, hope of becoming yourself voluntarily AI and becoming perpetual. You know, I mean, this is what say a big lab like Altos, they're working on how we can live forever. Because scientifically they are saying including parts of your brain. Even before that there were all kinds of crazy ideas, you know, that you can preserve your brain and then preserve your brain and scan it in every respect and put it on a cloud, and even if I pass, someone else can get that brain back, and therefore that is me. So, you know, so kinds of theories of that kind. You know what's happening with that crazy man in the United States? He's transfusing his blood, you know, into his son and then into his father, and he says thereby all three of us live, you know, we could theoretically, because he's got a particular diet and so on. This is so these are now in the biomolecular realm, right? From that, if it transcends into the AI realm, if it transcends into, already holograms are there. There is me and there's my hologram, which also has AI-enabled capacity to think like me, what does it matter if I decay and die? I am there. So, I mean, these are the realms at which people are discussing this. Therefore, I don't think it's like there's art and there is this. Art is enmeshed in this, you know, and therefore my sense of art is what enables this. You know, I personally think we are at a very, very solipsist extreme in our evolution. In the sense of extremely individuated, you know. We are looking at how I can be I, and how my I, the identity of I, has become so bloated that you want it there forever, and art is a subset of that. Art is no longer a mirror to it, you know. Art is not a expression or anything. It is in me, you know. I am the art. After me the deluge. I mean, I am it. I am the state. I am the hologram. I am AI. I am the art. That is where we are at, I think.
I am my selfie.
Yeah. I am my selfie. Yeah.
But just to, just 1 second, just to also address that Matangi's question about art, in Benjamin's formulation, he is looking at a process of art and understanding of art from a period pre-Renaissance, let's say, where it had deep ritualistic and sacral meaning, and therefore it was in one sense impersonal, because it gave you something. You approach a work of art because it's speaking to you, it's transmitting some vibration, something mystical, etc., etc. We can't, I mean, if you take Indian art, you have a lot of these kind of things one can talk about. Even though I think it's a misconception to say that art began with ritual practice. I think that's a misconception. There is a pre-ritual art, etc., but we won't go into that now. But so the arrival of the mechanical interventions disrupts that ritualistic aspect of art, makes it secular, whatever that term secular might mean, but it's no longer vibrating to you in the manner the old one was vibrating. So therefore, it need not be anymore something that you keep in your puja room, in your worship space. It becomes something like John Berger would say, you keep in your bank locker. It's investment, it's money, it's gold, etc., etc. So it even takes on that shape. It's a square piece which you hang on the wall, and it means so many thousand rupees or so many $1,000. This transition was a ruptural transition, obviously, and it has led to the last, say, 170 years roughly, if you want to give a date and time to it, of processes in the art world where we are today seeking that old connection again. That what Sashi is saying, seeking that individuality is also an attempt to recover that sacral space which seems to have gone away forever. And is it possible to recover it? Big question mark. It's a play with fire at the moment, because who will determine eventually what the sacrality is, what constitutes that sacrality is at a time when nothing is sacred, when your water, your air, your mountains, your trees, your forests, nothing is sacred anymore, let alone your neighbor and your parents and your friends and so on. It's like a free-for-all at the moment. So it's not a grim picture, but it's an uncertain picture. And let's say picture abhi baki hai, develop.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like AI's elephant in the room, as you said. Like early days when all these technologies were taking place, and when art was threatened, when the camera came, and we all were worried, now portrait is over or art is over, and there was no room for a portrait. But I think still our art colleges, our artists, and anybody, even a child in the school, they draw their parents' picture without any prior knowledge about it. So I think it is it is like it is not going to end, the creativity is not going to end anywhere, but AI is going to be one partner with us, and it's like camera is with us today, and along with that creativity exists, and fear which has been put in us that what will happen to all your individual creativity or collective creativity or your solid projects we create. It's somewhere we have been put into the fear that AI is going to take over and we will be put in the question. I look at it other way. we have been misled rather to deviate your attention. The amount of disaster is created. Like once upon a time when the computers came and the CDs were there and we were all into that new technology, the CD waste was a subject and topic of one time. So what to do with that waste? It's like now AI is creating so much of carbon emission. Are we deviated from that disaster to look at this? It's a something you are in a question, or you're no more going to be an artist, or there's no art is going to be existed. But I feel art will like how dependent we are. Matangi was talking, the light went. So we are completely dependent. So we need a kerosene lamp then. We need a candle. So it exists. A candle is somewhere, it is somewhere in the corner now. It's been forgotten, but we have to, it has to be there. And it is there. So, I don't know, I'm going to make a point. I lost somewhere, but it is, yeah, so that's where.
Are there any
my
more
worry is only we have to give a thought of a emission we are going to create and disaster Earth is going to face. That's a question. Creativity is going to remain. Art schools will remain.
I think so. I think it's just the nature of art that might change. I think that's, and where it is going to change and how, and its accessibility and its relevance, those are the questions, I think. I don't think there is any doubt about the continuing of art in some. Palani, Sashi and Sadanand, that was a lovely discussion. Thanks.
So thank you very much for this discussion, and in this sort of rapidly changing rapidity that we have and proliferation of spectacle, maybe slower, deeper reflections like this is really what we need. So thank you for giving us that space and that time for slower, deeper reflection. A huge round of applause to all our speakers, and thank you, Vaishna, for coming again. And thank you all for coming this Sunday morning till we meet again. Thank you.